Do I look chilly? Well, I am. Not only has the rain started up again here in Sacramento, but it is pretty damn cold. I'm sure that the temperature dipped below freezing during the night here, at least in our backyard. And but as you can see, I'm all bundled up. Constance and I stayed in bed as late as we could this morning, and we posted a couple little. We created a couple little memes. One about Zorro, and another one about Superman. And if you're on my Facebook page, uh, you can enjoy those this morning. We also were very impressed by an interview we saw this morning on Democracy Now! um, about uh, idolatry, and how no matter what in the Jewish religion. Now you know that I wrote a couple books as under the nom de plume of Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford. Well, you know I'm not. That's not a real rabbi. Okay, that's I'm using that as a literary device, but I have the greatest respect for Judaism and the teachings of the Kabbalah, esoteric Judaism, in the same way that I have great respect for the Sufis and the Buddhists and Taoists and everything else. But Lon will always just be Lon, you know. But the comment he made about idolatry and how that's one of the big fundamental no-nos, okay, is the prescription of idolatry. And I'm sure you can take that in the most narrow literary sense of the term, and well, I don't pray to statues, okay, but that word idol and idolatry has much broader implications about you put any sort of man-made creation and worship it above the creator itself, and that's a no-no, okay. And he was using it in terms of the difference between the worship, the holding the state or the government in higher regard than the source of that government itself. On a lower level, the people, and on a higher level, the deities. It's very interesting. So if you haven't watched an episode of Democracy Now!, which is broadcast every morning, and you might want to catch a replay of it. Anyway, I'm going to pick up where I kind of left off yesterday, because a couple major aspects of my world are coming together in wonderful and in scary ways. Now, you know I'm a Freemason, and I'm a 32nd degree Freemason of the Scottish Rite also. And in the United States, at least in the southern jurisdiction, which I belong to, the Scottish Rite southern jurisdiction, there is a great amount of, I would say, collateral lecturing on, especially in America, because the United States, the Constitution and the four founders and such were predominantly Freemasons, and the government of the United States is, in a sense, a grand Freemasonic experiment in social and government France too, you know. And I mentioned yesterday how saddened I was to see this great Masonic experiment being dismantled in favor of a more authoritarian government. I think it's not only immoral, and I think it's not only un-American, but worse than that, it's un-Masonic. And so we were talking about the how that's sort of sticking in my craw at the moment, and the virtue of patriotism, being true to your homeland and everything else, is inculcated in Masonic virtues. You should be a good citizen, okay? And so it is surprising to me that there isn't a greater degree, to use a Masonic term, is not a greater degree of alarm being set up among the influential and powerful quarters of the craft at what is happening. And not only that, I get at least hints of support for that. I find it absolutely inconceivable. And I would urge my Masonic brothers to, and sisters now, Masonry, thank God, is opening up to, anyway, to look to not only your own heart and your own intellect, but look to the principles of the craft, and do what you can, and do what you feel is your duty, not only as a citizen but as a Freemason. So that's my little talk. And but what I'm mostly interested in the craft is the esoteric aspect of the craft and the traditions, and that's what I was talking about yesterday. In my book, which I talked about yesterday, The Key to Solomon's Key. Is this the lost symbol of Freemasonry? The first edition was called Secrets of Magic and Masonry. And we talked about Solomon and what it takes to perform Solomonic magic. Number one, you have to be a Solomon. And we talked about that yesterday. Well, being the Solomon is having your the wet finger of your mortal consciousness plugged directly into the open light socket of the consciousness of the singularity, or divine consciousness. You got to have that electricity going through you in order for you to safely and appropriately order around the lower forces, the infernal forces, the demons, if you will, to have them do good stuff for you. And in the book, I've got seven secrets of Solomon. I'm not going to read them all to you. I'll just read the titles of them and then talk about. Number one, the individual is the fundamental unit. That's secret number one. The individual is the fundamental unit. Two, human beings are inherently good. You can argue about that all you want, but that's the secret number two. If you don't understand that, you don't understand the second secret. Number three, human beings evolve and with intent can accelerate the evolutionary process. Number four is the big one, and we're going to talk about this. All is consciousness. Number five, deity, angels, deity, archangels, angels, intelligence, spirits, demons, and you and I are personifications of a hierarchy of consciousness. Number six, it's our duty to master and redirect the lower forces to constructive ends. That's why in the formulaic myth, Solomon uses demons to build the temple. And number seven, as we are raised, so must we raise. So in other words, you just don't have the demon help you build the temple. You help the demon to become a Solomon too. Give the workers a raise. Respect their rights. They'll work better for you. And not only that, but you raise them as you are raised. As they have helped you raise yourself, you bring them up with you. I liken that to a syringe. Okay? You stick the needle in and you draw the plunger upwards. And if the plunger is unobstructed or unoccluded, the plunger comes up smoothly, and the sap or whatever you're drawing, the blood, okay, flows up, and the plunger can continue to rise while the things below it rise up with it. Okay? But if the needle is occluded, if the needle is plugged, you can rise the plunger up, but it gets more and more difficult as you create a vacuum in the space. So you're rising up, Mr. Plunger rises up, but a vacuum is formed with that which is below. And sooner or later, when the plunger is drunk or enraged or weakens in any way, or the power of the plunger is somehow distracted, the vacuum pulls the plunger even harder back down. That's what's happened. That's why so many Solomonic magicians, anecdotally, so many Solomonic magicians go fucking crazy. That's why the allegorical stories, that's why the Solomonic magician goes to hell eventually. The demons get him. Okay, that's because the vacuum has pulled the plunger down. Smack dab. Okay, the plunger rises up to heaven, but when it's weak, it gets pulled right down, and this time even further down into the infernal regions itself. Do you see that formula at work in those stories? Okay. The Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, which was the big thing for us in the 60s. Uh, let's see here if I can find what he said here. He said, consciousness is the basis of all life and the field of all possibilities. Its nature is to expand and unfold its full potential. The impulse to evolve is thus inherent in the very nature of life. And more recently, Deepak Chopra just says, good is higher consciousness. Evil is lower consciousness. Okay, this is now me. Consciousness viewed in its supreme totality could certainly be considered the mind of God. Indeed, if proponents of the so-called theory of intelligent design, okay, they sort of co-opted that term to say a bearded, narrow little small-town southern sheriff of a god invented everything. Oh, I invented a hummingbird. Well, yeah, but you just didn't invent the hummingbird. You invented everything that came into creating that. Well, anyway, I don't need to preach to you. If the proponents of that kind of intelligent design could for a moment unburden themselves with ulterior agendas, they might hasten to embrace the quantum theory by quoting the Nobel Prize-winning father of quantum physics, Max Planck, who shocked everyone in the 1950s by saying, quote, "There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. Thus, mind is the matrix of all matter." Oh my God, is that? The sun is coming out. Hail unto thee who art raw in thy rising. Hail unto thee who art raw in thy strength, who travellest over the heavens in thy bark at the uprising of the sun. Tahuti standeth in his splendor at the prow, and Ra-Hur abideth at the helm. Hail unto thee from the abodes of night.
It's raining here a lot.
It's raining still, though?
No, I mean...
Yeah. It'll go away soon. But we digress. All things, this is back quoting myself, all things we perceive in the cosmos, including ourselves, are aspects of consciousness within the matrix of matter. Don't run away from matter. When you're looking at stuff, you're looking at God, okay? That's why Malkuth is in Kether, and Kether is in Malkuth, only after a different manner. The different manner is how accurate is your observing devices, okay?
It's just to make it easy for you to see God.
It just makes it easier for you to see God. Thank you very much, dear.
You're welcome.
From our limited vantage point, we are only aware of the reality of our immediate neighborhood. We can't see the big consciousness picture. Some of us, however, sense there's more. Like the ancient Hermeticists, we are drawn to speculate about the existence of levels of consciousness both above and below our own. Deepak Chopra, again, his comment that good is higher consciousness and evil is lower consciousness is profoundly true from a moral point of view, but we can also view this hierarchy of consciousness in the way the ancient Kabbalists and magicians did, not as abstractions, but as spiritual beings. Deity, archangels, angels, spirits, intelligences, demons, and don't forget you and me. We're all personifications of just a hierarchy of consciousness. And that's Solomon's secret number 5. Deity is obviously at the top of the hierarchical consciousness, the supreme consciousness, if you will, the supreme being, if you will. All creation is a play in the mind of God. Next, lower in the hierarchy, is a descending array of forces and energies that are more specialized envoys of intelligence in the mind of God. We could view them as units or aspects of natural forces and laws. The ancients personified them as spiritual beings, calling them archangels, angels, and intelligences. We don't actually see these forces or these entities, but we're certainly aware of how they affect the world around us. For example, we could personify the law of gravity as a great archangel. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much what it is. We could even give this archangel a name, Gravity-al. Gravity-al is a spiritual being with huge duties and responsibilities in the universe. As an archangel, it embodies all that is gravitational. We see the work of gravity manifest in almost infinite ways. The tugging of the tidal moon, the falling of a raindrop, the sagging of a breast, the plummeting of a meteor. These specific expressions of gravity, and now we got waves and all sorts of other cool gravity shit that this as angels working under the archangel Gravity-al. Okay. These specific expressions of gravity could be viewed as angels: Tugga-al, Falla-al, Sagga-al, and Plummet-al, all working under the authority of the archangel Gravity-al. Gravity-al and his angels are responsible for organizing and directing all the work that takes place on the next lower level of consciousness, where the process of creating, sustaining, and destroying the material universe takes place. This is the world most of us consider objective reality. Magicians, however, have a more colorful name. We call it the infernal regions. If you can suffer one more of my metaphoric excursions, let's look at God as the owner, the boss of a cosmic company. Archangels, angels, and intelligences are middle management. The workers themselves are spirits and demons that dwell on the factory floor, the lowest level of consciousness. These workers do all the heavy lifting in the universe, and they're a pretty rough bunch. After all, they're not only the cosmic construction crew, they're the wrecking crew, too. This far down the scale of consciousness, the purity of the upper levels has become fragmented and disorganized. If this area is not consciously directed by middle management, these broken pieces of the mind of God will, like brutish and restless mob of unemployed and unsupervised zombie workmen discharge their awesome energy in chaotic and destructive ways, or destructive from our point of view. On the other hand, once controlled by a higher intelligence, in magic, a Solomon, okay, they become united in service to the company. If they continue to behave themselves, they eventually are promoted to middle management and beyond. Like that syringe. Come on, boys, come on up with me. Okay. The characters of the Masonic story of Solomon personifies this spectrum of consciousness. God at the top, the great architect of the universe. Solomon and his fellow Grand Masters, King Hiram of Tyre and Hiram Abiff, a supernal triad, if you will. So Solomon and the Grand Masters are in the middle. And at the bottom, the workmen of the temple. The masters are overseers of the work, and this is how they're divided. The workmen of the temple. The masters are overseers of the work, fellow crafts or hewers on the mountains and in the quarries, and entered apprentices or bearers of burden. If the entered apprentice worked diligently, he could be expected to be advanced to fellow craft, etc. Magical traditions break it up to the man of earth, the lovers, and the hermits. Okay, those are the magical workmen. Okay. Once in place and functioning, this scenario paints a picture of a universe in balance, a spiritual utopia where everyone is laboring successfully under the direction and supervision to raise themselves and their inferiors to the next higher level. And in the Master Mason degree lecture, don't worry, it's not secrets. This is monitorial. I can share this with everybody. Here's what it says. These were also so classed and arranged by the wisdom of Solomon that neither envy, discord, nor confusion was suffered to interpret or disturb the peace and good fellowship which prevailed among the workmen. Unquote. But where do you and I fit in this cosmic company of consciousness? It depends upon where our present level of consciousness positions us. In our unenlightened state, we've convinced ourselves that we're infernal creatures living and dying on the factory floor. Once we open our eyes, however, we discover that we are already relatively high in the hierarchy of spiritual beings. In fact, we are, each of us, the most important member of the middle management team, envied by angels, feared by spirits and demons. We are Solomon. Okay, I'm not going to read my comments on it, but the next the final two secrets are, it's our duty to master and redirect the lower forces to constructive ends. And number 7, as we are raised, we must raise. Anyway, well, thank you for your patience in allowing me to just sort of vent off the top of my head at the present world's situation. Magic and philosophy and things like that are all very good, but like I say, Kether is in Malkuth, And so when we're looking at the world around us, we're also looking at everything. So we can't run away from it. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, if I'm not shut down. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. Until then, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.